Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm 38 years old. The pursuit of a career has always been my aspiration, driven by a desire for independence. Fortunately, I achieved this goal upon entering the working world. Being financially savvy and continuously seeking ways to increase income and climb the economic ladder has been ingrained in me since childhood. This ideology was instilled by my mother, who emphasized the importance of financial stability and independence when I left home to pursue my dreams as a business analyst. When I first met my husband, Stephen, he was sweet and kind. However, the same cannot be said for my in-laws. Despite facing hostility from my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and mother-in-law, Stephen and I have been married for 9 years. While our marriage has had its ups and downs, I've recently noticed a change in Stephen's demeanor. I suspect it may be related to the life-altering news we received several months ago. I vividly remember the day Stephen found me in the kitchen after work. I was ecstatic because I had just received fantastic news. "Hey, babe. Hey, honey. You sound happy. What's got my wife so chipper? Share the good news." I was so elated that I was unsure if I could believe what had just happened. "Calm down. Don't keep me waiting any longer. Come on, spill the news." "I just got back from work and I got a promotion." I started doing our happy dance, a tradition we developed for our 9-year marriage to celebrate joyous occasions. However, this time something was different. Stephen wasn't joining in. Confused and a bit sad, I asked, "Why aren't you doing the happy dance?" In a disgruntled and frustrated tone, Stephen revealed, "I'm happy for you, babe, but I also got some work-related news today. I got laid off." The room fell silent, and the tension was palpable. I felt awful for my husband, realizing that my elation had unintentionally added salt to his wounds. "I'm so sorry, Stephen. This situation is devastating." "Well, I suppose that's just a part of life. There was nothing they could do. How about we make tonight more enjoyable by going out for some fast food at Chippy's? It might lift your spirits." "Honestly, Anna, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not really in the mood." "Thanks, though. I think I'd prefer some time alone." "Oh, and congratulations, by the way." The days that followed were less awkward but still uncomfortable. I could sense a growing resentment between us. It's not hard to suspect that Stephen harbored some jealousy and envy due to the circumstances, which is understandable given his sensitive state. I must point out that Stephen is quite traditional, valuing the idea of the father as the sole breadwinner with a wife taking care of the household. Unfortunately, that lifestyle isn't feasible in today's economy. We needed financial stability, especially with our focus on our children's education in private schools. Personally, such a traditional lifestyle doesn't appeal to me. I grew up believing in individual achievement and financial independence. With my recent promotion, I'm on track to lead a comfortable life. Being laid off was still a sore subject. Despite Stephen lounging around all day, not contributing to housework, and indulging in documentaries and video games, I tolerated it. A month passed, and Stephen was still in a funk. Even his extended family in-laws, whom I wasn't fond of, visited. But I set aside my pride to provide support for Stephen. During one visit from my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and mother-in-law, I felt uncomfortable and somewhat panicked at the prospect of receiving triple the negativity in my home. Despite Tom's insensitive comments about my job loss, I refrained from responding. My mother-in-law, loud and obnoxious, interjected with her remarks, emphasizing Stephen's apparent fragility and deserving of pampering. It was disheartening to witness his exaggerated treatment considering the circumstances. I'm feeling quite upset. The recent challenges have been tough. At least Anna has been here to support us during this difficult time, playing the roles of both a supportive wife and mother. It's disheartening to witness the state of the world. I've noticed that Stephen seems to have adopted some outdated philosophies. "Anna, I think it would be a good idea for you to prepare dinner for all of us. It looks like we'll be here for a while." My breath hitched as I had just returned home from an exhausting day at work. I had to stay an extra 5 hours to please my boss, as I wanted to maintain a strong work ethic post-promotion. The last thing we need is for both of us unemployed, so I strive to stay on top of my game. Unfortunately, this often means I come home exhausted and have to take on the responsibility of cooking, especially on days when Stephen is feeling down. There are times when I wish to come home to a pre-prepared meal on particularly hectic days, but Stephen, grappling with his own emotions, would often refuse. Despite my irritation, I would usually let it slide. On occasion, though, I would plead with him, and reluctantly, he'd prepare dinner, but the quality suffered. Surprisingly, he was the better cook before losing his job. Tonight, I'm not in the mood to cook, especially for a larger group. Thankfully, our kids are staying with friends, so we don't have to worry about preparing dinner for them. I'm feeling sore and tired from recent work, so I suggest ordering food from a great pasta restaurant I know. Dramatic gasps escaped from my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, while my brother-in-law shook his head in disapproval. Stephen remained unresponsive to the unfolding tension. How could you, Anna? I'm genuinely disgusted right now. We're your guests, and we seldom come over because you never extend an invitation. Is this how you treat us? My mother simply requested a nice home-cooked meal. The least you could do is serve us. Yeah, sister, I must say I'm quite disappointed to hear that from you. It doesn't have to be an elaborate 7-course meal. I find it astonishing that even we adults are being influenced by this younger generation. Anna, how could you pose such a question? We understand you're employed and busy, but can't you see that your husband is upset? Can't you do this one thing for him? You're his wife, for goodness sake. Handling the cooking is part of your role. Amidst the chaos of barking and yelling, I endeavored to de-escalate the situation. I clarified. I understand that you all may feel like guests, although you're family, not random strangers I'm trying to impress. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm quite tired. Since you all feel strongly about it, I will make dinner. I apologize for suggesting otherwise. Please bear with me. Making dinner might take some time because I'm utterly exhausted, but I will do it. As I rose to prepare dinner for my ungrateful in-laws, Stephen finally spoke up after what felt like an eternity, surprising me with his words. She's been forcing me to make dinner. Despite the dramatic gasp moments ago, I sensed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law clutching their pearls, emitting an even larger gasp than before. When I turned around, Tom shook his head more vehemently, displaying visible disgust pointed toward me. She did what? Are you out of your mind, Anna? How selfish could you be? Perhaps I'm the antagonist in this narrative. Well, at that moment, it certainly felt that way. I endured several minutes of angry in-laws labeling me selfish and evil for occasionally asking my husband to make dinner. It wasn't a daily occurrence, only on days when I was particularly exhausted and on the verge of collapsing on the couch. Sorry, Anna, I'm not trying to paint you in a negative light, but I believe it's unfair for you to burden me with household chores. If I'm the wife in this situation, the roles are supposed to be reversed. It's just not fair. I detected a crack in his voice towards the end of his monologue and immediately softened. My poor husband was grappling with a lot of angst and turmoil. I recognized his struggles with depression and the difficulty of getting out of bed most days. Perhaps he was so debilitated that he couldn't do anything. I decided to hold back my words and offer a compassionate ear. I'm so sorry, Stephen, I am okay. From now on, you don't have to make dinner. I'll take care of everything. I entered the kitchen and prepared dinner, consuming it in silence once it was ready and served. Stephen, Freya, Tom, and Martha chatted the night away, appearing to have a great time. They didn't include me in the conversation or inquire about my well-being, given my silence since the embarrassing and frankly unjust argument that transpired. It seemed they still held the belief that I was the instigator of everything. What bothered me most was what Stephen had said. While I was accustomed to my in-laws treating me that way, Stephen's behavior surprised me. Nevertheless, I set aside my pride, and from that day forward, I took on the sole responsibility of cooking and cleaning, contributing to my escalating stress and exhaustion. Another month passed and I continued to manage the household. Being the sole provider was sustainable for the time being, thanks to the bonus and slight pay increase from my recent promotion. However, I was aware that this situation couldn't persist indefinitely. Despite my growing concern, I allowed Stephen to continue indulging in his misery to some extent, understanding that he was entitled to feel upset about the whole ordeal. Fortunately, we were privileged that he could stay home and address his broken heart, unlike some people facing desperate financial situations, who have no choice but to seek work immediately after being laid off or fired. Stephen had the luxury of taking time to recover. This routine persisted for an additional 3 months, during which I observed the household funds steadily decreasing. Despite initially thinking I could sustain the household for a while, I began to realize it was unsustainable in the long run. If we wanted to keep our daughters in private school, Stephen needed to secure a job as soon as possible. One day, I sat him down and communicated this urgency. Stephen had been speaking to me brashly and curtly, exhibiting an attitude akin to a disgruntled child who hadn't gotten what they wanted. I think it's time you start looking for work. Our lives can't be sustained if we keep spending like this, relying on only one source of income. But I thought you had a job, and you got a promotion, remember? Do you remember how you're making more money than me because I'm jobless? Yes, Stephen, I understand you're still hurting. But we need to consider this. Our daughter's private school is very expensive. Don't you think I know that? God, you can be so obtuse at times. His tone softened as he noticed my eyes turning red and my face puffing up. Exhausted from everything, I was weary of extending sympathy to a man who was emotionally taxing me as well. Hey, don't cry now. I'm sorry, Anna. You know I've been feeling stressed because of this situation. I know, babe, but we need to take action, or else our children will suffer. I'll commence the search tomorrow. Interestingly, there's no need for you to embark on that job hunt because I believe I can arrange a position for you at my workplace. Yes, it's true. I was the one who facilitated his employment here. Through networking, hard work, and cultivating a positive relationship with my new boss, I managed to use my influence to secure a job for Stephen. Although we both operate in the same industry, we deliberately chose different companies to avoid potential stress in our relationship. This separation allowed us to maintain our identities rather than just being known as a married couple. Given our circumstances, I felt there was little choice, and at the time I thought, how challenging could it be? As it turns out, much more challenging, as the upcoming revelation will reveal. Several more months passed, and Stephen was making excellent strides in the company. However, what he disclosed to me after only a couple of months on the job left me astonished. Hey, I wanted to let you know that I've invited Mom, Freya, and Tom over for dinner because I have some very important news to share. Could you please prepare a good meal? The news is genuinely exciting. Stephen began doing a happy dance, and I joined in the celebration, despite being unaware of what was happening. Following his instructions, I prepared dinner and welcomed our guests. As dinner commenced and small talk unfolded, Stephen interrupted the conversations with a surprising announcement. As you all know, I gathered you here today to share some incredibly exciting news. I'm thrilled to announce that, drumroll please, Tom and Freya immediately placed their hands on the table. We were all on the edge of our seats, eagerly anticipating the revelation. I got a promotion! Instantly, joy and excitement erupted around the table, with everyone bouncing and celebrating this achievement. I must admit, I was a bit taken aback by how quickly he earned a promotion, considering he had been here for barely a year. Yet, in the moment, my excitement overshadowed any surprise. I was just thrilled that he seemed to be pulling out of his slump. He looked better, as if he were taking better care of himself, and that was what truly mattered. Wait, everyone. I don't think Stephen is done with his announcement. Go ahead, Stephen, tell them the rest. There was a hint of hesitation when he said, Anna, here you go, and handed me what looked like a hotel key card. Confused, I began to form an idea. Oh, honey, did you book us a hotel room to celebrate? How considerate of you. This is lovely. Honestly, I could use something like this. I've been so stressed and exhausted. No, it's not a hotel room for us. It's a hotel room for you. I was clearly bewildered, and in that moment, I noticed the rest of the in-laws weren't confused at all. If anything, they seemed somewhat pleased, as if they had set up all the pieces and were waiting for the last one to fall. I'm confused. What's happening? Well, Stephen approached us some time ago and shared details about his new job and how well he was doing. Specifically, Freya and I suggested that given his success and increased bonuses, he should reconsider his life choices and decisions, as we weren't too fond of what you said months ago. Last time we were here, Freya, we suggested and eventually decided that both of you needed a break. We felt that there was mistreatment, and he deserved some peace, especially now that he's financially stable and doesn't rely on you as much. I was taken aback by what I heard. Never before had my heart felt so pained and my mind so confused. My husband, my partner for the past 9 years, had chosen to treat me this way, influenced by his malevolent family's desire to make my life miserable. As I glared at Stephen with a face filled with hatred and rage, he bowed his head in disappointment. But let me clarify, it didn't exactly happen as you described. We believed that you both needed space due to the stress you were facing. Since Stephen is the breadwinner now, we thought it made sense for you to stay in a hotel temporarily. You're kicking me out of my own house, the house we paid for together, I protested. However, the response dismissed my plea for equal rights, asserting that Stephen, as the head of the household, makes the decisions. Livid and seeing red, I couldn't fathom how people could treat others this way. That night, as I fought back tears and the urge to set the house on fire, I noticed the amusement on my in-laws' faces. My husband looked somewhat sheepish, only mildly embarrassed as if he had made a trivial mistake on an exam, not broken his wife's heart. Without uttering a word, I stormed to my room, packed my belongings, and drove to my best friend's house. That night, I spent hours sobbing, questioning what I did to deserve such treatment. My sadness morphed into anger and a desire for revenge. Despite exhaustion from months of hard work and emotional abuse, I mustered the energy to investigate. Determined to uncover the truth about my husband's sudden bonuses, I called in sick the next day. After he left for work, I returned home to conduct my sleuthing. Aware of his working hours as we shared the same workplace, I went straight to his office. After a few hours, I discovered shocking evidence. He had been embezzling money from the company, colluding with the new boss I mentioned earlier. Staring at the computer screen for 11 minutes, I grappled with the reality before gathering the incriminating information onto a pen drive. I meticulously gathered all the emails, documents, and information highlighting inconsistencies in the company spending that could be used against him. Returning to my room, I packed a substantial number of my belongings, fully aware that I wouldn't be back for a long while, if ever. Upon reaching my best friend's house, I began the task of compiling all the gathered information into a PowerPoint presentation. My intent was clear, to bring about a drastic change in this man's life. Once the presentation was complete, I emailed my boss and attached relevant emails, particularly those involving higher-ups in HR, emphasizing the urgency of an emergency meeting to discuss crucial discoveries. I crafted the email to be vague yet intriguing, ensuring it would prompt an immediate response. In a separate email to my husband, I informed him of an emergency meeting concerning plans for the upcoming fiscal year that he needed to attend. Both my superiors and my husband promptly responded, confirming their availability for the meeting. As the day of reckoning arrived, I felt a mix of giddiness and excitement. Dressed in my finest attire, I made my way to the meeting room, observing that most attendees were already seated. The only ones remaining were my conniving husband and my deceitful boss. Upon their entrance, a brief moment of panic crossed their faces as they realized the gravity of the situation, perhaps a twinge of guilt hinting at their misdeeds. Leading the meeting, I presented the information with utmost clarity, intensifying the atmosphere as I progressed. The room was filled with astonishment, and both my boss and Stephen turned red, succumbing to panic under the piercing gazes of everyone present. A superior even declared they would face legal consequences for their embezzlement. At one point, Stephen shot daggers through his eyes, but I met his gaze with an equal measure of hatred and disgust, twisting the metaphorical knife even deeper. Unable to endure the heat, Stephen stood up and unleashed a barrage of accusations. He branded me a wretched little gremlin, accused me of lying, and threatened legal action for slander and divorce. The man I had married all those years ago seemed completely gone. A monstrous figure now stood before me. Attempting to exit, he was caught off guard when 3 burly security men, stationed at the door per my prior arrangement, prevented his escape, leaving him embarrassed and exposed. My deceitful boss, who was complicit in all the illicit activities, started muttering about how his life was ruined, while Stephen persisted in embarrassing himself by attempting to push past the robust security personnel. I dedicated a solid 41 minutes to articulating all the information I had uncovered, and by the end, both men looked utterly defeated. As you might expect, both Stephen and my boss were promptly terminated and charged with embezzling company funds for personal gain. They were escorted off the premises, but not before becoming the center of a media frenzy. Oh, did I mention that I had also tipped off news outlets and tabloids to capture the looks of horror and embarrassment on Stephen's face? Well, I did, and it felt immensely satisfying. The following morning, seeing his face plastered across the front page of the local newspaper brought me joy. He deserved the public disgrace after the way he had treated me. Currently, Stephen is behind bars, attempting to secure bail. However, investigations and assumptions have arisen, suggesting that my brother-in-law Tom might also have been part of the scheme. To gather more information, I delved deeper and discovered that Tom, who works in the engineering field, had indeed been assisting Stephen and my boss with their embezzlement. Adding insult to injury, it seems my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were also involved in criminal activities. It all began to make sense. The reason my in-laws and husband kicked me out was to facilitate their ongoing criminal endeavors. Speculations abound that Tom may join Stephen in prison, and my mother-in-law and sister-in-law are likely panicking as they anticipate being exposed soon. Despite the chaos of the past few months, I'm grateful that I unearthed this damning information before things could escalate further. My good deeds did not go unnoticed. Not only did I expose my reprehensible husband and his family, but I was also approached by my superiors. They thoroughly reviewed my work file, acknowledging my accolades and achievements, leading to my promotion. I'm taking over my old boss's position, and I start the new role next week. This promotion comes with a more substantial bonus and a higher pay raise, and I'm thrilled to embark on this new journey. As expected, I'm in the process of filing for divorce. I won't be associated with a criminal. Obtaining custody of the kids seems straightforward on my end. I am their mother, financially stable, and not a criminal who abuses trust. I am genuinely excited and happy about this new chapter I'm about to embark on. In the end, it seems everyone got what they deserved.